There should be a just between us girls for Rulaska Thoughts.
And Untucked.
And Untucked. Yeah, you're right. I think we should call it Untucked, where Robert tells me all the ways that I'm going to offend him right here on Rulaska Thoughts. Cue the sniper, girl. Robert told me he wasn't that girl. That's not a rhyme. Said not to call him wrong. And now I disobeyed him in this song, and so he will cue the sniper, girl. Anyway, the voice you're about to hear is the lovely one, the beautiful one, the smart one. Mr. Roberto Mata. Hello, Robert.
Hello, Joe. How are you?
I'm fine. You know, I want to get your opinion, especially since your patience with me is short today.
It's not my patience with you generally. It was just in one specific thing that we talked about 500 times.
And I felt badly, and I feel I owe a conversation to Nathan. I don't know if you heard the entire episode yet.
I did. Yep.
And do you know the moment I'm talking about?
When you sort of told him to stop making drag race references as jokes. Would we even have a show?
Look, a drag race reference and a joke is fine, but it's like I can't say, what do you think of this moment? And the only thing you say are drag race references, and you're like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah, I hear
that was sort of my like. And here's the other thing too: is this Lori was coming in with her weird ass non sequiturs and like saying Akasha forgot. Like, okay, Nathan, I get he's a foreigner, right? Lori's from here.
I mean, I'm definitely one to mispronounce words that I've only read. I've done it, in fact, several times on this very show. But it almost seems like some people who can't pronounce that name have only read a Wikipedia summary of the episode and aren't actually watching it and hearing it. It confuses me.
And also, look, I've seen this thing on Twitter or TikTok recently. Like, what's the word that you mispronounce? Oh, Mr. Blackstone's here. What's the word that you mispronounce and you mispronounced and you still think about it? It haunts you to this day. And
the biggest one.
Do you know one for you?
Me
okay.
Is I guess you weren't asking me.
I was asking you. No, I was asking you.
People have been asking me so many questions about myself lately. The self-centeredness is unfortunately a little high at the moment, more than usual. For me, it's a behemoth. It was junior year of high school, AP English language, and I read behemoth out loud because I had never even seen that word before. Granted, no one else in the class knew it except for this one girl who, I kid you not, is a dead ringer for Hormona fucking Lisa.
Oh, how interesting.
Which might be informing my opinions of her.
I have a couple. One when I was also oddly enough, when I was a junior in high school in AP English, I knew what this word meant and I had read it, but I had never heard it or said it. And the teacher asked the class. So actually what's funny is I mispronounced it and the teacher was cool with me actually like scoring some brownie points, but it still haunts me. She was like, oh, what's the kind of, does anyone know the word for the kind of love that isn't returned or reciprocated? Strangely, I had a crystal ball with me and I saw a picture of many twinks floating by. But I went,
time to get gapey?
Yeah, I raised my hand and went, unrequited? And she was like, yes, but it's pronounced. She was really cool. She was like, oh, yeah. But you say it's unrequited. And to this day, like the shame just comes over me, right?
Yeah.
And then fairly recently, again, another word that I never heard said out loud because I'm not fucking in Harry Potter world or the Lord of the Rings. But this is like 2 years ago. I said hearth. And Chris and his fucking British friend just howled with laughter. And they're like, do you mean hearth? And I was like, you fucking assholes. Like, okay. It's first of all, I'm not a dummy. It's the word earth with the H in front of it. So it's not like I was like a big stretch there.
I I feel like I need to revisit that one myself because I remember in classics we'd say that Hera was the goddess of the hearth. Not the hearth.
I bet you there's two pronunciations.
It might be an American British thing. I also just might be straight up fucking wrong.
Well, speaking of you saying that, I'm going to cut to the chase here. I was going to say this story in a bigger story we had, but I'll say it now. So Robert and I were at coffee with one Christian and Jessica over the course of the week during the LA fire nonsense. And
not nonsense.
I was saying that I thought, based on what I know of this person that Robert used to date, that this monk I saw on YouTube would be Robert's type. And so we were pulling it up, and I think Christian and Jessica asked, what faith he was. And I was like, he's Catholic. And they got so upset, like I was being offensive. Like, monk is only a term for Buddhists. What are you doing, Joe? What's wrong with you? And it was one of these things where I could see you being, maybe not that situation, Robert, but it being in this situation where you're like, how hard do I go here? And I was just very like, that is a Western name for an Eastern religious role. So obviously they're not called monks in Eastern religion. Two, Christian and Jessica speak Spanish fluently. So just basic Spanish would tell you just from the root that, do you know what the Spanish word for nun is, Robert?
I don't, but you did mention it at coffee.
It's monja.
Yes.
So you just think about it, you would know. But do you want to weigh in on this? I know you're very protective of them, so you won't say anything. But
thus far, I'd say continue your story.
What's the end of the story? But I was saying, it somehow had to do with what we were talking about. But Robert, everybody doesn't care about this. They want to know about your thoughts on the fire. Do you want to tell your story? It's your story. I daren't tell the story.
Thanks, Joe. That's so kind of you. You're so thoughtful.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Who's Robert, ever said a word against you?
I'm like deeply in love with you, right? As a friend.
Well, anyways.
Robert, I love you.
Thank you, girl. Thank you.
Okay.
I've been like thinking over the last couple of days, how much do I tell in this story? Because it's not unquestionably dramatic, and I'm trying to not exaggerate it. But as Joe's mentioned on previous episodes, I have been prepared to evacuate since the winds began.
I don't think the public feed knows this.
Oh, okay. Well, okay, then I'll start from the beginning and I'll try to make it quick.
Don't worry about that. Where are they going?
Global All-Star Queens to Harry Potter characters.
Yeah.
So everyone got warning in Los Angeles who's connected to the news that the winds were going to get out of control, that the rains have been so crazy the last couple of years and the recent drought had been so bad that it was in essence a perfect storm for a firestorm, which I thought was very reasonable. I hadn't packed yet, but the next day, one day into it, I realized just the year prior that the apartment next to me had burned down and I had fled from it with flames literally licking my own apartment window that I sleep near. So I have already experienced the regret and panic of standing with absolutely nothing on the sidewalk with your like stranger neighbors, just like watching everything probably burn down, so to avoid that level of, I don't know, extremity, I packed my true irreplaceables and sentimental items into 2 bags. I loaded them in my car. And from that point on, where I'm based in the hills, to be clear, is right at the base of the Hollywood Hills, where from the east, I can see the Eaton fire. And from the west, I can see the Palisades fire. Like quite literally, I could see the flames for the top of on each hill, like lick above. I see the red clouds. I'm pushed up against the hills enough such that I know if evacuation happens, if anything happens in the hills and it spreads as quickly as it did in the other scenarios, then I'm going to be the last bitch out, because with the fire to the north, it means that the only way out is south. And having suffered that commute out a number of times, I knew that there was no way that I was going to get out in time, or it was going to be one of those panicked 2012 San Andreas, like Roland Emmerich disaster moments where I'm honking and swerving on the sidewalk and doing all kinds of crazy shit. So to avoid all that, I spent the whole night awake, went through the howling winds, kept watch on Twitter and the fire map and Reddit and various news shows, and just didn't sleep. A couple of friends said, Robert, you're being paranoid. You're doing too much. I realized that, but I
never said it, but I thought it.
Well, I can feel, I can feel myself looking a little over eager to be ready. You know what I mean? Like, I can sense the drama myself.
When you and I spoke, there was just the Palisades fire and the Eaton fire. There's no other fire, really. Oh, there was one in the valley.
Was there? Yeah, well, that was the north. So at that point, my northern exit strategy, which would be to go up the 5 and out, was blocked. So north, east, west, south is it. And like I said, I would have been the last bitch out if a formal evacuation was given. Whatever, I'm going too long already. But I work the whole day at the office. From the office, I can see the hills. So there's no fire in the hills when I leave the office. I can see that. And then when I turn off of Sunset to get to my apartment, 1 block in front of me, the whole hill's on fire, which is a sight I really can't describe for you unless you've seen it and felt it. It's really quite something. But I was prepped, so I was able to just floor it. Like Millie Bobby Brown seeing a faggot, and I got the hell out of there. So then I was safe.
Wait, does Millie Bobby Brown not like faggots?
It's been a long Twitter joke, I think. Actually she said she doesn't like that joke, but I don't give a fuck. Whatever. She makes more money.
She kind of bugs, if I'm being honest with you.
Oh, I really don't care, actually. Are they still making Stranger Things?
I don't know.
You know what bugs is that ugly ass guy on there getting the role of Johnny Storm? No.
Which guy?
He would look like a 40-year-old junkie.
Oh, I know who you're talking about, because I'm going to tell you something. I think it was season 2. I've talked about this before. God bless whoever the costume person was who put him in these very flattering jeans, and you just saw his fucking giant Robert Mata trunk in his pants the whole season.
Diva, aren't these supposed to be 11-year-olds?
No, he was older. That character. Are you talking about the one that's the boyfriend of the girl?
I don't know, because I've only seen the first season.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, the point is, I don't know how I got from there to there to there. Yeah, I do. I was just talking shit. But ultimately, I was glad to be prepared. I still had a minor panic as I looked into my rearview window and an entire mountain was on fire 3 blocks from my apartment. But in the end, for the second time in 2 years, the bitch didn't burn. So I'm very grateful right now.
Yeah. And then he went to Orange County.
I did, where I was summoned. I did not come up with the idea to go to fucking downtown Disney, which was its own surreal experience, honestly. But nowhere near to the degree of commentary that I have about the actual fire.
And then Robert and Christian and Jessica and I met for coffee. Oh, how was Pokey afterward? I had to go to work.
It was good. We went to a park and we just hung out like we were a bunch of teenage Mexicans in Fullerton. It was like a weird time capsule, actually. Every hangout that I had, which were strangely several because so many other evacuees were in OC, it had the very exact same tone as when we were in high school and we would get a lockdown because of nearby gun activity or a bomb threat or whatever. I'd say that probably happened around twice a year, but let's say that happens when you're in a class with all your best girls. So there's the very slight background of possible, violence and death, but really you're also just enjoying the insanity of the moment. Enjoying's probably a strong word to use, but it's just a weird thing to experience. But
you're safe and you're back in your apartment.
I am, and the winds are supposed to begin again tonight, so I will be similarly vigilant.
All right,
and I haven't unpacked my stuff because I just don't think it's necessary. It's not all my stuff. It's just the, shit this piece of coral I got on the seafloor in Okinawa, or like a book my dad gave me, or my GameCube memory card. You know, true irreplaceable shit.
A letter.
Is irreplaceable a word? I don't think so.
Yes, it is. All right, we'll be back right after this.
Oh, this bitch again.
Yeah, I forgot to change it. We are back. I forgot to change the music from coming back into the break. Anyway, Roberto Mata, you know, I have an entire show where I give my thoughts on the episode, but we just covered on Drag Race Recap, we covered season 17, episode 2, titled Drag Queens Got Talent Part 2, which is funny because Drag Queens Got Talent Part 1, it was not the name of the first episode, it was Squirrel Games. But Robert Mata, Drag Queens Got Talent Part 2, did you have any big overall general thoughts before we get into these think piece parts?
So, having just explained my reasonably stressful weekend, obviously other people have it worse, but I still went through what I went through. Drag Race has been said for many people to be a refuge when life is tough and difficult. And I know you know what I'm about to say.
I don't make any assumptions. Robert Mata is always full of surprises, and I love to hear all of them.
Not these baby hands. Anyways, for a show that's supposed to make one happy...
Robert does not have baby hands. I've seen them. They're strong, masculine
They're actually
hands.
A little soft for the amount of weightlifting they do. Anyways, this episode was supposed to make me happy, and it just made me more upset and realize how serious the world is and how I don't care about all these awful fucking lip syncs and queens and nonsense. This was terrible. I think this might stick out to me, and we just finished Global All-Stars where you heard my disdain. This is probably the worst episode of the show I've ever seen or felt walking away from it. And it includes that episode where Candy fucking Muse was called back for no reason. Because personally, what I needed this weekend was a good escape from the shit that was literally blowing against my apartment. And all I got was a reminder that none of this shit matters.
There was a while where I was drinking the meal replacement drink Soylent. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what it's like now, but this is like almost 10 years ago I was drinking it. And people would ask me, what did it taste like? And I said this, and it was a more sensation thing because it felt, I felt like I was drinking.
We're not doing Drag Race references today.
No, we are doing Drag Race references. It just can't be the only thing you say. You can't go like, what did you think of this lip sync? And you're just like, oh, y'all wanted a twist, eh? And then you're like, and it's just, you just sound like my soundboard. Okay. Anyway, so it felt like pancake batter going down your throat, but with zero taste.
Like so my protein shakes, really.
Oh, that your protein shakes? Okay. And so that's how I liken so far this season. Like I maybe because you went through a stressful situation, and I understand that you were very disappointed to the point where you're angry at it. I just had no emotion about it. I don't, and this goes to one of our think pieces, but I just literally, and I think this might be unusual for being this deep in, have zero connection to any of the queens. But anyway, I don't want to go into my thing yet. Do you have other? So go on. Sorry.
Well, no, you didn't cut me off at all. I was intently listening. I feel that you've been dispassionate about the show for several seasons. I feel like there are two things that happen every single season. One, people on Reddit are going to say, oh my God, I think Rue is actually enjoying herself this season. She really enjoys these queens. This is so different from the past. I'm like, yeah, but I've read the same upvoted comment the last 10 times. Like, whatever. And two, Joe is at some point going to say, the last few years, this is just a job. I used to really like this is just a job. I don't care what happens to these queens, blah, blah, blah. True. I can't give it to you verbatim, but you know the vibe.
Oh, I agree with whoever that wise person is. I agree with him.
So what makes you even less invested in these girls then? Let's jump into it.
Okay. It I kind of, it's one of these things where it's now so, you're so right, and I get it, that now I don't even notice it. Okay. And then there was a Reddit post that I think I sent you, right? Where the person says that they've seen comments where people are saying they're not connecting to the queens. And I was like, oh, okay, well, people are feeling the same vibe here. But even still, I would say this is the first, now look, we're only 2 episodes in, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I would say, like, even the other seasons where I say this, I'm always thinking we hit the floor. I realized, Robert, I don't know if I was using a lot of big words. I realized I'm listening back.
So I love this word.
Yeah. But I feel we hit the floor, okay? Every season, I think we've hit the floor of how little I care about the queens. But I don't see a world where I care as little as I do about the queens now. And not only that, it has seemed the past couple of episodes that they're trying to make these moments happen. Now, we saw this last year where it was like a few select queens, like Plasma would do this, and where she would always give these confessionals where you could tell she was trying to make these confessional moments that would go viral.
You hate Plasma so much.
Oh, dude, I really fucking hate Plasma. Anyway, but this time around, it reminded me of, there's this really good essay that I kind of want to reread, by the author Chuck Klosterman, who kind of, I don't think he sees himself as a pop culture commentator, but that's kind of what he is to me.
His name's Chuck.
Yeah, it's true. So it's Chuck Klosterman, and I think actually the essay might be called like The Shattering Beauty of Tom Cruise's Face, or Abnormal Face.
Oh, but he doesn't write pop fluff pieces?
Oh, girl, all his shit is pop culture pieces. But he wrote this thing years and years ago. I think this essay I read was like 20 years old, right? It's 20 years old now or so. But it was essentially about...
older than half this cast.
Yeah, the show The Real World. And it's from the book Sex, Drugs, and Cocoa Puffs. And it's about the real world, right? And he was talking about, because The Real World, at least in the US, was sort of the first sort of mainstream reality show, if you think of it. Mm-hmm. And how The Real World was sort of seen as this, documentary style TV show that was supposed to document, because I don't know if season 1 was supposed to, I think it might have been supposed to be just like a one-off season. But The Real World was supposed to document the lives of young people who've just left college trying to make their way in New York City. And it was supposed to reflect the youth to the populace at large through this medium. And then it got very popular. So then they had Los Angeles and San Francisco and Miami and Vegas and New Orleans and all that, right? And he talks about how what we see is an evolution of the show from reflecting young people, the reality of young people trying to make their way, to a cast of characters who are now reflecting what they perceive the real world is supposed to be. And so it sort of becomes like a wag the dog situation, where the cast is the show is now about the cast reflecting the real world and not the real world reflecting the cast. And this is where I think this has been a while for Drag Race, but I've never seen it to the degree that I saw it this episode. Maybe that's what you weren't liking or connecting with. Like, again, when I saw this purple moment thing or whatever with the makeup, I was like, oh, brother, right?
God,
literally
so uncomfortable.
It was just like, you're trying to make it a thing. And look, we've seen it for years. In season 7, I would say, we've seen queens. You remember when this Jaden Dior Fierce kept trying to say "work that puss" into anything?
Yeah, no one has actually given that more life in the last decade than you, Joe. I will say.
Well, because
I'm in love with Ivy Winters.
Yeah, Ivy Winters, right? But it annoyed me even then. Well, look, even with the Ivy Winters, RuPaul has the social media capital, or even it's not social media, it's just capital to make a thing, right? But Jane Dior Fierce doesn't. Poor Mrs. Kasha Davis didn't. That seemed weird. Okay,
I will put a pin in there in rebut, because Mrs. Costa Davis, as I did think, stick with the people. Certainly well enough that when she later said there's always time for kindness, the contrast was evident and celebrated.
But I would venture to argue that that's because she recognized she was able to take it and make it something. But I think before then, you would have thought it was kind of pathetic.
I think I had respect for Mrs. Kasha Davis as an OG. Probably not an OG, but certainly someone who I would respect. So I always appreciated It's Always Time for a Cocktail. She seemed like a girl who knew what she was about and what she's there for.
All right, fair enough. The point is, we've seen people on there trying to make a thing happen. And it just seems like this cast, there's a combination of no one wants to be the bad guy, so no one's really putting their real personality out there, but they all want to go viral for what they consider the right reasons. So you just have these empty ciphers just talking and trying to make something happen. It really does seem like AI just talking to itself. And
I don't give a fuck about your pet cat Gouda.
What? Oh, yeah, that was a line, wasn't it?
I don't give a fuck about your drag queen, Lux Noir London. I don't care about the Gouda. I don't care about anything.
Yeah, and that's the thing, too. And I was trying to get, Nathan and Lori took it to a whole thing with Taylor Lautner, but I was just trying to pick a random celebrity. But it's with this weird thing where people will meet a random celebrity and know them for some reason and think that person is like the most important celebrity that ever lived, because
yeah, I mean, it really shows how dire the situation is on Drag Race when the Ouroboros response is to have Lux Noir London be your frequent reference.
Yeah, to the point where you're even making a puppet. I don't think I've ever seen anyone with that kind of I can't think of the word right now, the fancy word. But the point is that, like, this homage that is it
Lingerie, who actually I don't mind at all. I just don't care for anything she's done.
But she keeps thinking that she keeps dropping this Lux Noir London thing. Like, everyone's gonna go crazy, and I'm like, I mean, she's fine. I don't have a problem with that, but it's like it's a weird flex. It's bizarre.
I don't know. Should I go on the show and flex like smoking a J with Jasmine Masters like 6 years ago? That should be my talent show.
Make a puppet of Jasmine Masters or
I'm
whatever.
Ready to smoke some weed with all my friends.
Like, look, here's the deal. I made fun of it, but I'll give you a pass on the first episode because you're trying to establish your connection, your bona fides right there on the show. Okay, fine. But now you're doing it in your, like, I will give is it Sam Starr? She, apart from it coming up in her confessional when she came in, like, she has not mentioned Trinity the Tuck that we've seen.
True.
She's not like, Trinity was telling me the other day, like, it's just like she mentioned it when she came in. Okay, fair enough, And then we haven't, and by the way, Sam Starr is annoying in her own right. Don't get me wrong. But did you have any thoughts on anything I just said?
Just that I'm in complete concurrence. I hope that we don't spend this whole season just bemoaning the same issue, which is that fuck these queens, they're young and uninteresting and have not nary an original thought, but I guess we'll see, right?
Well, I hope and don't think so. It's just the problem is they haven't, and this might not be their problem. This might be the fault of the editors. They've yet to give us a storyline. They're starting to develop one with Hormona Lisa, but they've yet to give us any kind of storyline to work with.
Yeah, I think the weird fledgling relationship stuff that who gives a fuck? That's pretty much it. And that Lexi's old, which I called out last week. Old.
But it's such a weird thing. Do you think it's one of these things where they don't really think she's old? They're making a joke, but the editors are making it seem like they really do think she's old, or like?
I think that it's a relative thing. I think that when I, for instance, flee to my godfather's house and I'm suddenly surrounded by 15-year-old dancers, I'm like, oh, I'm a fucking grandma for sure.
Well, let me ask you this question, and I want you to be honest. You will not hurt my feelings, and we all know Robert Mata is anything but honest. Oh, it's the opposite. No, it's the opposite. It's the opposite. He's honest above all things. That's what I meant.
Unfortunately, okay. It is a defining character trait of mine. Yeah. Which is why it pisses me off when you undermine it, Diva. It's hard to be honest.
Wait, hold on. As I said there, in the story, the point of the story was that I was wrong.
I know. Anyways, continue.
Anyway, is when we were hanging out and getting coffee, I didn't feel this. I'm just thinking about this right now as we're talking about this. Mm-hmm. When we were getting coffee, me, you, Christian, Jessica, and the friend, Kevin?
Yeah.
Was there this sense as like us and this old person?
I think my breath says that my answer is not an immediate no, but it's not a yes either. But I think that's just because, I mean, you are at least a decade older than us, mm-hmm. but also you definitely come through with the old gay references, which I love, obviously. But otherwise, you're just as vigorous and ready to do things as the rest of us. So it's not like we're like with an old person.
I don't. And the answer wouldn't bother me. The answer wouldn't bother me. I was just saying because
I didn't say no and alleviate your fears immediately.
No. But I know. But what I'm saying is, I'm trying to give you the reason I'm bringing this up is it has to do with the way Lexi Love is in relation to these girls who, A, she's not that much older than them. And two, she seems to be, it's not like she's like, what does this mean? Or like I would say this more just in terms of personality about Susie Toot and Hormona Lisa. Where Lexi Love seems to be personality and vibe wise much more on the level of the other girls. Am I wrong here?
I see what you're saying. Yeah, yes, but also Lexi has the appearance of and vibe of a queen who you go out to the smoking patio in between numbers and Mama's already half a pack of cigarettes in. Mm-hmm. And she's just going to gab with you about the shit that she's seen over the years on Santa Monica Boulevard, you know? And that's the spirit of an older person.
Well, yeah, you and I went to the bars when Nathan was here, and I don't go to Santa Monica Boulevard that often anymore. And I was like, where's the burger place? And everyone's like, that's been gone for like, where's Bossa Nova? And everyone's like, what? It's like these places have been gone forever. I'm like, oh, I don't know. Right? Thank you.
I mean, say like 4 or 5 years for those places, but I mean, Susie Toot's an old soul. Mm-hmm. I don't know why she's intent on wearing like those Naruto hats all the time, but hey, nerds are gonna nerd. And Hormona, I don't. Well, I'm sure we'll talk about her later.
Let's talk about Hormona right now. So, Hormona Lisa, look, for people who don't remember, even though it's been said many times in the show, but there are still people who, strangely, a lot more than you think, Robert, who do not watch the show and listen solely to this show.
I believe it because you say it every week.
Girl, I just want the record to show that if I were to say these things to you, the headphones would come off, you'd throw the microphone, you'd drive to Anaheim, there'd be a whole thing. Anyway, and I'm not mad.
I could say the same to you about other things.
So I know we got to be careful. I said we should cut the episode short because I have to go, but it'll turn into a fight. I'm actually not mad. I'm talking about your end. But now I might have started a fight because I told you how you're going to feel. And
the maddest I am about today is that I've pulled another fucking Charizard pack and I'm looking for a Starmie EX and I pulled my 5th Charizard EX. That's what I'm mad about today. I've had it.
I don't know what you're talking about. I know you're talking about Pokemon, but
plenty of people do.
Yeah. Anyway, I could think of one. I can actually think of 2, actually. Anyway, oh, by the way. Oh, no, we talked about the coffee. We don't talk about it right now. Okay. So anyway, this Hormona Lisa. Okay, so she's really annoying and awful, and we get the story. That she was
Is she
handpicked.
awful? I don't know. She's definitely
not.
annoying.
She's not. Okay, you know what? You're right, Robert. You're right. So the story for Hormona Lisa was she was at a RuPaul book event, and she got up and asked a question and mentioned that she had auditioned for the show and never made it forward. And RuPaul, in a magnanimous fashion, right there in front of everyone and the cameras, gave her a golden ticket to Hollywood, so to speak, and cast her right then and there on the spot on the show. And now we see that she's there, and I will say that you can tell she's struggling. And I don't say it's necessarily her fault, and this is what I want to talk about here, and I know this is a talking point that's been and a discussion point that's been around for a while, but I think we're really seeing it with Hormona Lisa, is there a spot anymore for queens who don't either have the connections to designers or the financial means to pay for designers on this show? Can you still have, who's the one that died that was poor?
Chi-Chi.
Yeah, Chi-Chi DeVayne. There you go. Yeah. Is there room for a Chi-Chi DeVayne? Is there, cause I'm mentioning her because she was talented but poor. Is there room for these people? Or there was one actually that was poor, but she was a good seamstress. So she was okay. But what do you think?
I think we're watching a television show, and the most essential element, I don't care about charisma, uniqueness, servant talent, and as far as a TV show is concerned, I care about stage presence and television camera charisma, and Chi-Chi had that in spades. She was an interesting character. She wasn't shy. She didn't curl up into a little ball every time a barb is thrown her way or a confessional camera gets turned on. It's not Monica Beverly Hills crying for no reason all the time. It's not James Mansfield just being so fucking awkward. I feel like I'm the new kid at school again. It's just like, it's not, Hormona Lisa has not a drop of what's it called with the television charisma? What's the word for it?
Like the X Factor kind of thing?
Well, that's it. Ultimately, there is a specific word for it, but ultimately, it's the same shit that for my Harry Potter girlies out there that Bonnie Wright had as Ginny Weasley. She's just not that girl, unfortunately. Probably a lovely girl to kiki with and go to TJ Maxx with, but not a superstar I want to see on TV.
Yeah, I think we saw that this episode. She's not a good television presence. Her drag is not very good. That stand-up comedy routine was atrocious. And I think what it is, and I know people get really mad when I take it here. And I know we can have this in other places, but this is what sticks out to me. And I'm going to be a loss for words too, but that sort of that white confidence that comes with there are white people who are mediocre, but they act like they're the greatest. They have this confidence. That you don't know where it comes from. And she has that in spades. There's no humility. There's no like, oh, I've got my work cut out for me because these girls have money and connections. It's just like, she goes in there thinking like RuPaul handpicked me. I'm just coasting all the way to the finale. And she's going to go up there and do some shitty. I don't think I've seen worse stand-up. Because you might go, well what about
I do think
Laganja?
Jasmine Masters was worst.
I don't remember that one.
To bring her up again. It was the All-Stars for episode 1 where she just, I laughed and howled because obviously it was funny for completely unintentional reasons, but she just tried to give a rehash of one of her more famous viral videos about someone's breath smelling like ass.
I think the problem with Jasmine, and I've seen this before, it's a different sort of problem, a different angle, is they just didn't prepare. They thought that they would go in and just by the very nature of their charisma be very funny. Hormona Lisa prepared.
I probably would have been cackling in the front row, yeah.
Hormona Lisa prepared, and this is what she gave us. And which, by the way, and you might be like, well, right? I don't know why people say that, but even a stand-up comic, a seasoned one, will try out material. So I find it hard. So I don't even think she tried this out. You know, one of my favorite moments in college, there used to be the Irvine Improv used to be across the street from UC Irvine. It's not anymore. It's in the Spectrum. But at the time, you could see great comedians just randomly pop in, and they did a special event where Gary Shandling was going to host the Grammys the next day, and he popped in to try out his jokes. You try them out. You see what works. You see what doesn't work. You play with it. And I don't even get the sense that she did that, because there's no way you'd go in front of an audience, say those jokes, and think they're going to land. They were awful. They were awful.
It really felt like, sorry, I'm going to shit on her again, Megami, but it felt like Megami had to do a stand-up routine, and so she made it like, oh, conservatives hate us, and then there's some weak punchline.
Well, that's why, you know, when I first saw it, I was like, when she said, my name's Hormona Lisa, which is like Mona Lisa, but a whore. And I thought, okay, maybe she's doing some sort of irony thing. Let's see where she goes. And I was like, no, I think that was a genuine joke that she made. My name's Acacia Forgot, because it sounds like In Case You Forgot.
Well, because you mention this occasionally, the logic of the joke doesn't make sense, because I thought the obvious pun of her name was that she's trans and takes hormones.
Oh, is she trans and takes hormones?
Am I doing a Lori, no, this is how you have gay sex thing here?
Oh, that was a weird... I can't tell if she was doing a bit. Yet the people who are in public, you don't know what we're talking about. I don't know, but that's the thing, is if we don't know, that's not good. That's not a good thing. It was horrible. And so the point is, though, is there a place for this show for those kinds of people?
There absolutely is. What we as the audience need is to not be subjected to a minute of their mediocre talent, and we need them out at a first or second Drag on a Dime episode.
Mm-hmm.
This talent show is not meant for these baby queens who you're pulling in out of the Tuesday night drag show. It's just not. Unfortunately, the drag is their talent, and in many of their cases, their only talent, and they don't even do it that well. So the talent show is meant for all-stars and people who have proven that they are beyond the Instagram influencer grid of capabilities. You know what I mean? It's just not. I think it's almost cruel to have these people get on stage and humiliate themselves because they don't know what else to do.
So what do you think the solution is?
Keep the talent show towards the end. Honestly, if they're gonna make us look at it. I get the line of thought that every queen deserves the chance to show their talent before they get, an unfair hand dealt to them, and they're not a designer, so they get kicked out first at the design challenge. Great, whatever. But in terms of an entertaining start to the season, that's when most of the people are going to decide, do I want to suffer through the rest of the season with this cast that I don't give a fuck about, or am I going to lock in for a couple of these girls? Right now, we're seeing a bad double header, and I don't know why anyone would want to keep watching this.
Yeah, because you could name a season right now, and I would say, even if I hated them, right, I could name 2-3 queens that you were like, okay, they deserve to be there. I'll give you a good example. Candy Muse deserved to be there. I don't like her, but deserved to be there and made great television. Okay.
No, she didn't.
Girl, she has star quality.
No, she doesn't. Candy Muse has the quality of that annoying ass little cousin who runs up and says, Mom says it's my turn on the Nintendo 64, but for drag.
I agree with you. I don't like her, but what I'm saying is, I'm still struggling to remember their names or who any of them are. Like, in other words, there are a few people like Susie Toot and Hormona Lisa, and then there's just white and brown blobs. And I couldn't tell, if you showed me, I couldn't tell you who they are. If I'm being honest.
I do love Lexi and I do love Corey. So
which one's
get
Corey?
Me through, I think.
Oh, she's the one with no, that's Lana Del Rey.
No,
which
that's
one's Corey?
Lana Del Rey. Corey is the one who did the lip sync where the ice cube fell after her dip. All right. She's playing Jane's sister.
Oh,
which
yes,
I don't care for Plain Jane, because Plain Jane to me and Mr. Blackwell have a lot in common, which is a deep, deep, deep desire to be cunty. But to use New York's words correctly, they do not have the vernacular they think they possess.
Are you talking about the legendary fashion consultant Mr. Blackwell or Mr. Blackstone, who we talked to?
I thought they were one and the same.
No.
Oh, IP
Mr.
issues?
Blackstone sued Mr. Blackwell because he feels Mr. Blackwell stole his whole vibe. But Mr. Blackstone is an asshole.
Well, that's some court proceedings I would love to sit in on.
Oh, I have the recordings. I have them.
Hello, release the tapes.
I'm gonna have to release the tapes. It was really bad. There were several "you can't handle the truth" moments.
There aren't enough lisp moments in that.
Well, what's sad, I didn't want to tell you. There was. What happened was someone had offered a truce. And that's what was said. It was shocking.
Well, I can't wait for the leaks.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, we are going to call it a day there.
Well, I did want to, as my therapist
we have
to end on something positive, but I'm struggling. Do you have anything positive to say about the episode?
Oh, about the episode?
Yeah.
I'm being honest. I didn't find the episode boring. I really didn't.
That's good.
Yeah. Look, I did say this in the show. I do think the Badonkadunk, as rigged as it is, was clever and entertaining. I was entertained.
Yeah, great. I'm with you there. I got a childlike joy from seeing Michelle get submerged.
Yeah.
Cool.
I thought it was clever. I thought it was funny. I wish that they would have the courage to just make it for real. They would
never do that.
But other than that, yeah, I thought it was entertaining. I thought it was not entertaining. I was not bored, and time flew by, and yeah, that was good.
I don't know why Hormona Lisa had to lick one of the poles.
Girl, I can't.
The word's telegenic. She doesn't have any telegenic qualities.
No,
you can especially tell when she's trying to pick out a pole. It's like, God damn.
She looks like Bunsen from the Muppets trying to do drag.
I wish I knew the reference.
Please look up Bunsen from the Muppets. Right now. I want you to do it right now. While this music replays. But she looked like
Bunsen.
Bunsen.
How do you know all these Muppets names? Oh my God. Just nasty. So nasty. It's so rude.
I didn't want to tell you. I try to keep this low key. My last name used to be Henson before I got married.
Oh my God, Joe.
Yeah.
What happened to Mr. Henson?
No, I'm Henson. I got married to a guy named Batance.
Oh God, yeah, I butchered that.
Yeah, it's all right. All right, guys, we will see you guys next week here on RulaskaThoughts.
Bye.